in a lot of places where we speak and we try to profess what we understand and know as being right, a lot of people say, well, don't look at me. I'm not doing it to you. Of course you're not. But you're, like I said earlier, you're helping to perpetuate the system that has been the oppressor of the native people. The community groups, the self-help groups are doing great things, and they feel strongly about us, and they verbalize their support. The Canadian Labour Congress, the Farmers Union, but they have their own battles to take care of. Like the other day, they're battling in Parliament Hill, the farmers. They threw eggs in Mr. Whalen's face. Nothing happened. Yet, the native caravan went down there on an Aboriginal rights issue, and they called out the gendarmes, and they called out the army, and beat them with clubs. The postal workers broke in to the Parliament buildings and broke windows, manhandled guards. Nothing happened. Why? Because they have a lobby and we don't. They can afford to do those kinds of things. And the government cannot afford to stand by and do anything about it. Because these people are powerful people. If what the Labour Congress tells us, and the farmers' unions, and the teachers' unions, and various other unions, and self-help groups and community groups, that they want to help us, and if we can get together and do something about this together, we may see social change. But as a group of people who want and need our Aboriginal rights, it's inherent in every individual in this room to identify with a certain piece of geography, whether it be here in Canada or in Europe. A lot of people say, my people came from the Highlands, we came from Bavaria, we came from Scandinavia, and they can name the town where they came from. We are the same kind of people. We can identify with those places, but we do not have land tenure. And I cannot see this government who is sitting over in the UN doing nothing, not only for us, but for Canadian people at large, for all of you sitting out there. I cannot see them being an effective force for us. They are doing nothing and will continue to do nothing unless people here get together on issues and deal with issues. We can verbalize all we want. You want me to give solutions? The only solution that I can give you to our particular predicament is for this government to make a public statement and agree to international conventions or live up to international conventions of human rights that they have entered into and recognize our Aboriginal rights. I'm convinced that the only alternative that we have, if they don't do that, like I spoke this afternoon here at the other forum, when I say that the Aboriginal rights of the Métis and non-status Indian people have to be recognized, I am not speaking out of empty-headedness. I mean that. Because if it doesn't happen, the frustrations that my people harbor are going to surface in a violent manner. Not that they want to, but that's the only thing that I think they will be able to do in the end. I have been convinced of this for 10 years, yet I hope it doesn't come to that. Because culturally, as a nation, we want to remain solvent or alive. If that happens, we will be nothing. They will wipe us off the face of the earth this time. I'm also convinced that if we do not receive an intelligent answer from this government very shortly, that the only way the Métis and non-status Indians of this country are going to receive satisfaction is if we take the land. Just move on to it, occupy it, and say, come and get us. That is the only way. And I will be the first to say that I will be a part of that process. I am not what you might call an ignorant Indian, like a lot of people. I have attended your institutions, I've studied psychology and political science and law. I am not talking as a fool. I have studied all your revolutions, like the French Revolution when people were used. When the middle class was through with them, they sent the sans-culottes back and the peasants back to being peasants and the army back to being army, and they took over and they were the new goddamn regime. We are going to have to replace the whole social order in this country with a new one that we're going to have to come through together as a people of this country. We have to share this country. But first of all and foremost, my main concern and the concerns of my people are that our Aboriginal rights are recognized. And I will say again, if they aren't recognized, you talk about violence. I will talk about violence for 1 second before I close. We were at a press conference last week sometime, week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks now. And one reporter asked us, are you going to indulge in demonstrations or violence? Now that is silly. Of course we're going to go into demonstrations. That's the right of every individual in Canada under the Constitution. I suppose it is, because everybody's doing it. But how the violence that we're supposed to be talking about gets shunted to the rear and put off in the wings where no one can see it. It is the death rate and the infant mortality of Indian children. The life expectancy of an Indian man and woman, which is far below that of the other Canadians. The jail population, 65% almost at any given time of any institution, and 50% right here in New Westminster in the penitentiary, are Native men. At Pine Grove in Saskatchewan, the women's jail, at any given time, 95 to 100% Indian women. The lack of adequate housing, when families of 10 to 12 and 13 and 15 are living in a two-room shack. The lack of medical facilities, dental facilities, proper education, the lack of time to be able to indulge in meaningful culture and recreation. That's violence. The denial of those social amenities to any individual in this country, that is violence. That is the violence we should be talking about. The government sits downtown in its ivory tower, and they don't only talk to us about violence, they talk to all the other union members, I suppose. But that is how they skirt the issue. And all the do-gooders in society and all the whatever pick up on that. And they create dichotomies. Well, we can't support that group because they're going into violent action. We can't support this group, and people are just spread apart. If we could all get together and overthrow the 3% that control the economy, then I'd gladly get into some violence.